happiness to everything, and love no story.
The End of the Affair by Greene. Dramatized for radio by John Harvey, with Alex Jennings as Bendrix and Emma Fielding as Sarah.
Our hearts more sweetly sing than love no story.
Whatever its title, this story, like all stories, has no beginning or end. Not really. One simply chooses, almost arbitrarily, that moment of experience from which to look back or look ahead. And yet I cannot help but wonder how far I chose to begin on this black, wet January night of 1946, the war not so many months over, or if these images chose me. Indeed, if I had believed then in a God, I might also have believed in his hand plucking at my elbow and directing me towards poor Henry Miles, who was walking towards me unaware, half blinded by the rain which ran in streams down his black civil servant's overcoat. This man whom I hated then, and who I suppose must have come to hate me, just as surely as at times he must have hated his wife, Sarah. Hated her as fervently as I did myself. For this, you see, is a record of hate, far more than love.
Bendrix. Henry. You're almost a stranger. It must be more than a year. June 1944. So, what are you up to in all this rain? Oh, I wanted a bit of air. Clear the old head. And you? A drink. You know the Pontefract Arms? I wonder, you wouldn't mind if I joined you? It would be my pleasure.
Here we are. Your good health. Cheers. You had a good Christmas?
Very nice. Very nice.
At home?
Home? Oh, yes.
Yourself and Sarah?
Yes, of course.
And she's well, Sarah?
Thank you, yes.
She didn't fancy a stroll this evening, I think.
Oh, she's out for the evening somewhere. You know how she is, always wanting to be involved in things. An active mind. I'm worried about her, Bendrix.
Sarah? She's not ill. I thought she...
No, not ill. At least I don't think so.
What then?
Bendrix, I can't talk here. Not about this. Come home with me. We can talk there.
But Sarah, won't she be back?
I don't expect so. Go ahead into my study. I have quite a good whiskey.
Perks of the job, Henry. My office.
Bendrix, I'm afraid.
Whatever of?
It's Sarah. She... Oh, Bendrix, I've always thought the worst thing, the very worst a man could do is not to trust the person he loves.
But Sarah...
She's out now, Bendrix, now, for a walk. In that downpour. How can I be expected to believe that?
And it's not the first time.
No. I've gone as far as getting the name of a private detective. Of course, I was as discreet as possible. A fellow called Savage in Bygate Street. Here, I have his card.
It's serious, then. You're serious.
You were always a special friend of hers, Bendrix. I thought tonight, when I saw you on the common, that if I told you and you laughed at me and called me an old fool, then I could throw away this wretched little man's address and put the whole affair to the back of my mind.
I don't think you're a fool, Henry.
You mean you think it's really possible?
Of course it's possible. Sarah's human.
Bendrix.
You asked me, Henry, if I thought you were a fool. I only said there was nothing foolish in the idea. I said nothing against Sarah.
Then you think I should forget it?
I think you should do whatever you think right. Whatever you need to set your mind at rest.
Whenever I think of going to his office, this man Savage, sitting there in front of his desk in a chair so many other jealous husbands have sat in, telling the same pathetic story.
Why not let me go, Henry?
You?
Jealous lovers are more respectable, less ridiculous than jealous husbands.
Lovers? But you're not.
No, of course not. But I could pretend.
No, I wouldn't think of it. Best forget all about it.
Sarah's coming back.
No, it'll be the maid. It's her night off. She's been to the pictures.
I don't think so. That's Sarah's step.
Oh.
Sarah? Look who's here. It's nice to see you. You out for a walk?
Yes.
It's a filthy night. You must be wet through. One day you'll catch your death of cold.
I cannot say how many days passed. I have a vague memory of vigils along the edge of the common, watching their house from a distance on the off chance that the door would open and Sarah would come down those unblasted, well-scoured steps. The rainy days were over, and the nights were fine with frost. But like a ruined weather house, neither the woman nor the man came out. And so I had Sarah in my dreams, in my waking hours too. Sometimes with pleasure, sometimes with pain. And all the while I was trying to write a book that simply would not come. What I was feeling, the hate and suspicion inescapable, the passion to destroy, went deeper than the book, deeper than anything. Until one morning I woke up and knew, as though I had planned it overnight, exactly what I must do.
This is not then your wife we are discussing here?
I said the wife of a friend.
But perhaps you and the lady are, intimate?
I've only seen her once since 1944.
Then there's something here I don't understand.
What, you don't think love or hate can last that long? Don't make any mistake. I'm just another of your jealous clients. No better, no worse than the rest. Let's just say there's been a time lag in my case.
So the lady, you think she is now being intimate with someone else?
Her husband thinks so. She has private meetings, lies about where she's been. She has secrets.
Secrets? Yes.
Of course, there may be nothing in it.
Almost invariably there is.
Your reports, whatever you find, it's understood they're to come directly to me.
Of course. Now, let me make sure the relevant details are correct.
Relevant? Who's to say? Who's best to judge? I could have told him, for instance, of that early summer of 39. The gulls coming up the Thames looking for bread, and the sun still glinting on the common where the children sailed their boats. I had met Henry a couple of weeks before in the course of researching my book, and, ever generous, he had invited me to meet some of his friends for sherry, colleagues, mostly, from the Ministry of Pensions. And that was when I saw her first. Or rather heard her. Her laugh, her voice, her step. And then she was standing there, smiling, and Henry was introducing us. And although I don't think then we exchanged more than a few words, from that moment on I couldn't help but watch her. Her beauty, her apparent happiness, the way she had of touching people just for a moment, as though she loved them all. And I wonder, looking back, if even then there wasn't some seed of jealousy forming inside me, unseen,
no bigger than the hangnail of the smallest finger of the smallest hand. As I was leaving, I asked Henry if I might contact his wife about my research, ask her for the woman's point of view. And, of course, he was only too happy to agree. After a decent 2-day interval, I phoned Mrs. Miles, Sarah, and invited her to dinner at Rule's. We ate lamb chops and drank a little too much wine, while I asked her about life as the wife of a senior civil servant, one with all the prospects of high office, even possibly a knighthood. When she asked me about my own work, I did my best to make myself sound interesting without suggesting for a moment self-importance, self-praise. By the time we stepped back out into Maiden Lane, we had possibly drunk a little too much.
You know, I've an awful confession to make.
Really?
I've never read any of your books.
Not even one?
Not one.
I'm shocked, truly shocked.
Maybe you should tell me which to read.
As a sort of penance.
If you like.
Wait.
What?
Come here.
What are you doing?
Kissing you. Trying to, I'm sorry.
Don't be.
I waited a whole week before I called her. A film of one of my books was showing at Warner's in Leicester Square. I suppose it's no good asking Henry.
Not a bit.
Perhaps he could join us afterwards for supper.
Some wretched liberal was able to question in the house about widows. He'll be too busy burning the midnight oil.
Oh, God.
What?
That dialogue.
What about it?
Cliché after cliché, just listen.
I don't think it's so bad.
It's not what I wrote.
I thought it was. I thought that was just the point. Why we were here.
The original is mine, yes. But this was written by some hack who thinks nothing about throwing out my words in favour of his own.
There was one scene you did right.
Which was that?
When they're in the restaurant. The woman and her lover.
And he's ordered steak and onions for both of them.
And when she's got the onions on her fork, she hesitates because she knows her husband can't stand the smell. And the lover sees this and realises what's going through her mind. He grows sullen, upset and angry because he knows when she gets home, her husband will take her in his arms and kiss her by right.
How does Henry feel about onions?
He loathes them. And you?
I love them.
Then here, share these with me.
Thank you.
How are they?
Delicious.
I want to leave.
Now?
Now.
You haven't finished your steak.
I know.
And the wine, there's a third of a bottle of claret.
I don't care.
Excuse me, sir. Is something the matter?
No, everything's fine.
Why are we running?
I don't know.
You know where we are, don't you?
Of course.
And if I try to kiss you again? Is it stupid to say that I'm in love?
Very.
Then I'm in love.
Me too.
We can't go home.
Oh, no, not yet.
Taxi!
Morris, what are you doing?
An hotel. We'll go to an hotel.
Taxi! There we are.
You know I can't stay all night.
I know. Paddington. Eastbourne Terrace. The Bristol Hotel.
See if I've got some shillings for Nita.
Oh my God, this place.
What about it?
The red velvet curtains, the full-length mirror opposite the bed. It's like something in a cheap film. One of those novels you only see at the station bookstore.
I'm sorry.
What for?
You don't like it?
I love it. Come here. You've been here before, haven't you? This hotel. This room.
Research?
Of course. Morris.
What?
We fell asleep.
Oh, what time is it?
It's gone 11. The way that Bruins Gorgon from downstairs hasn't been banging on the door demanding more money.
Oh, don't worry. We can be home in 15 minutes, 20 at most.
We?
Oh, Sarah. I hate the idea of taking you home to him. Of him kissing you.
You won't. Onions, remember?
Thanks very much.
Come in.
I'd best not.
Henry's bound to be still working. He'll expect it. Henry, we're back. We'll be upstairs in the living room. Come and join us if you can.
No.
What's the matter?
Henry, he might come in.
It's all right. We'll hear him. There's one board that always creaks. You see?
Sarah, Bendrix, there you are.
We were hoping you'd offer us a drink.
A little of your famous whiskey.
Of course. So how is the film? Interesting?
Dreary.
You're only saying that because they changed your precious words.
But dinner?
Oh, dinner was good.
Dinner was marvellous.
And here's to the end of an excellent evening.
Cheers.
Bendrix, it's good to see you here. You must come again more often.
You must come again more often.
I'll call you in the morning.
No, it would be better if I called you.
Walking back across the common, how her words reverberated, their meanings changing. The sad knowingness with which she bade me farewell. The history drawn up into that word, always. The stare that always squeaks. And so it had begun, in tandem with the first months of the war, the phony war, our affair which was from the first driven by a half-blind desire and tainted by mistrust, the feeling, the fear, that in Sarah's life I was only one of many men. And all through that first year, even as our passion grew more reckless, more desperate, so my fears of betrayal grew alongside. For were we not living proof, as Henry laboured long hours over the distribution of gas masks in their approved cardboard cases, that it was possible to make love in the most dangerous of circumstances, if only the want, the need are there.
Morris.
Well, supposing it hurt.
Oh, don't worry. You wouldn't have known what it was.
Poor Henry.
I've never loved anybody or anything as I love you. And I never shall. Nobody else. Never again.
And she meant it. For her, at that moment, it was true. She could bring down a curtain around that hour, those seconds, that room, that hardwood floor. No past, no future, the present only. But me, even then, in that moment of love, part of me stood back, outside, like some shabby private detective, gathering evidence of a crime that had yet to be committed. A betrayal that was no more than the sum of my own fears.
A week now, Mr. Bendricks, and scarce any movement at all. Your lady, she seems to have gone to ground.
Give her time, Mr. Savage. Give her time. Bendricks?
It's me.
Sarah? Is something wrong?
No. It's just... Since I saw you the other day at the house... Morris, can we meet? For lunch somewhere?
Of course.
You couldn't manage tomorrow?
No, I'm afraid not. There's an article I have to finish. Deadlines, you know.
Wednesday?
Thursday might be easier.
All right. Should we arrange where to meet now?
No, I'll phone you.
Hello?
Sarah, tomorrow's fine. Same place, same time. Lunch, I suppose you had a reason.
I wanted to ask you about Henry.
Henry?
I'm worried about him. He seems so distant, preoccupied. And since he saw you, it seems even worse. I don't know. As if he's waiting for something awful to happen.
I didn't notice anything.
And he didn't say anything?
No.
I thought, at least, he always seemed able to talk to you. He likes you.
Then he's a fool. Are you all right?
Yes, it's nothing. So, are you working on a new book?
Of course.
It's not that old idea, the one I hated, about us.
No.
Some men would have.
A year of my life devoted to what would be little more than revenge seems too much like hard work.
If you knew how little you had to revenge.
Oh, of course. I'm joking. We had a good time together. We're adults. We knew it had to end sometime. Now we can meet for lunch, like friends, and talk about Henry. I'll walk you to the Strand.
Leicester Square. I'm going to Leicester Square.
I'll say goodbye here then.
All right.
It was nice seeing you.
Yes.
Maybe some other time if you're free.
Yes. All right.
You should go to a doctor. That needs attending to.
Oh, it's only a cough.
Where did she go?
Turned down one of those alleys that run between St Martin's Lane and Charing Cross Road. Agitated she seemed, not certain where to go. Finally, she crossed over and walked down to the National Portrait Gallery. Not that she stayed long. Came out and went back the way she came.
To Maiden Lane?
That church. You know the one. Roman?
What on earth was she doing in a church?
Not praying, that's certain. Just sat there near the back. 15, 20 minutes. Then she left and caught the bus back home.
And all that time she never spoke to anyone, met anyone?
No.
She will.
It seems, Mr. Bendricks, you were right. Twice recently she's cancelled appointments at the last moment. Her dentist and the dressmaker. Both times she fetched up at an address west of the Common. Cedar Road, number 16.
There's a man.
A Richard Smythe. Unmarried. Lives in the house with his sister. As yet I've not been able to obtain proof of any actual infidelity taking place.
If only you knew, Sarah had said, how little you had to avenge. Why then did I want to hurt? Hurt both of them as much as I could.
Henry, I wonder if we could meet at lunchtime. Someone in your office. The Embankment, perhaps, Victoria Gardens.
My dear Bendricks, your call had me quite rattled. I hope nothing's wrong.
I'm afraid it may be.
Then what is it?
You remember that private detective you spoke of, Savage? I said I would go and see him on your account.
Yes, but I never thought...
He's proved every bit as good at his job as you might have hoped.
Bendricks, you've no right.
Of course, I'm paying all the charges.
Absolutely no right at all.
I think at least you should read his report.
No. The facts...
To hell with the facts! I always loved this view. Down the river towards St Paul's. Even now, in the midst of all that destruction.
I used to think during the war, the raids, as long as it remained standing, the cathedral, somehow we would prevail. Were you two lovers, Bendricks, before? Is that the explanation? The excuse for what you've done? I suppose you think I'm an awful fool not to have guessed. Why didn't she leave me? Why doesn't she now?
Habit, Henry. Besides, why should she? You've a good safe income, security, and you don't get in the way. You were no more trouble to us than you've been to the others.
Please don't.
Sometimes I thought you knew about it all along and didn't care. I longed to have it out with you. Then. Not now that it's too late. Tell you what I thought of you.
What did you think?
That you were her pimp. You pimped for me and you pimped for them, and now you're pimping for somebody new.
Bendricks, please.
It's true. You pimped by never really knowing her, never learning how to make love to her. You pimped by being a bore and a fool, so now somebody who isn't a bore and a fool is playing about with her in Cedar Road.
Oh, Bendricks, I never knew.
That's worse, Henry. Your ignorance, that's no excuse.
Why did she leave you?
That was your fault, too. She wouldn't leave you, so I drove her crazy with complaints and jealousy. I became as much of a bore and a fool as you.
People have a great opinion of your books.
And they say you're a first-class chairman. What the hell does our work matter?
I don't know anything else that does. I wondered why you hadn't been to see us all that time.
I suppose, in a way, we'd got to the end of it. Love.
except the routine. She could shop and cook and then fall asleep with you. But she could only make love with me.
She's very fond of you.
One isn't satisfied with fondness.
I was.
No. I wanted love to go on and on. Never to get less.
That's not human nature. One has to be satisfied with less.
Why did she leave you? Henry's words were like an abscess in my mouth. A rotten tooth I could not stop myself from probing, no matter how much it hurt. It was June of 1944, and the first of what we later called V1s were for him. Strange new weapons droning up from the south like bees, doodlebugs, buzz bombs. We lay in my room, spent from making love, listening, my head resting on her stomach and her taste, as thin and elusive as water in my mouth. What we took for a plane on fire, its engine out of control, bumbled overhead, and then that sudden waiting silence we would learn to fear, when the engine cut out, and you knew the bomb had started to fall.
That was close.
We should go down to the basement.
Your landlady will be there. I can't face other people.
Oh, she may be away. I'll go down and see.
Oh, don't go. Please don't.
I'll get out.
Be quick, then.
Sarah, are you all right? Are you hurt?
Oh, Morris.
Yes.
Oh, Morris, you're alive. You can't be.
I am.
Oh, God. Oh, God.
It's all right. Come on.
But you're hurt. You're bleeding.
It's the front door. It came in on top of me. I lost a couple of teeth, that's all.
Come over here. Let me wash your face.
No, it's all right. When I came upstairs, what were you doing crouched beside the bed?
Praying.
Who to?
To anything that might exist.
Might have been more practical to come downstairs.
I did. There. Oh. Now I must get dressed.
No, wait a minute. What do you mean you did?
I came halfway down the stairs. I couldn't see anything, not at first. Just clouds of dust, and then I saw your arm stretching out from underneath the door. I thought you were dead.
And that was all? You came back here?
Yes.
And prayed?
I knew for certain you were dead.
There wasn't much to pray for then, was there? Except a miracle.
When you're hopeless enough, that's what you pray for. Miracles. Now I must go.
No, stay until you're clear.
I can't.
It's safer here. 2 bombs don't fall in the same place.
Morris, don't. Don't make it more difficult than it is.
Well, I'll see you out. There's no banister anymore. Be careful. Shall I see you tomorrow?
No, I can't.
The day after.
I don't know. You needn't be so scared.
Scared?
Love doesn't end just because we don't see one another.
Doesn't it?
People go on loving God, don't they, all their lives without seeing him?
That's not our kind of love.
I sometimes don't believe there's any other kind.
I stood there in the open doorway, watching her torch trail across to the opposite side of the common, like the tail light of a slow car driving away. And until that night, 2 years later, when I met Henry wandering in the pouring rain, and he invited me home, I never saw her nor heard from her again. Of course, for days after that, I had hope. It was only a coincidence, I thought, that the telephone wasn't answered. And when I discovered that Sarah and Henry were away in the country, I told myself that in wartime letters are frequently delayed or lost. When at length I wrote to her myself, marking the envelope urgent and please forward, I received no reply. People go on loving God, don't they, all their lives without seeing him. How like her, I thought, to mix religion with desertion and make it sound so damned noble. Anything rather than admit now she prefers to go to bed with somebody else.
The man, Smythe. Cedar Road, Richard Smythe. I've been able to find out a little more about him. Not too much, mind. Lives with his sister, like I said. Preacher, sort of. Except he seems to back for the other side. The Rationalist Society of South London. That's what he's got printed on his card.
Handsome.
It depends which way you look at him. One way, one side. Oh, yes. Handsome as they come. Clark Gable, Cary Grant. But you just turn him around and all down one side of his face, these marks. Red and deep. Sort of gouged into his cheek. Ugly as the devil. But you can see for yourself, most Sundays, out there on the common with the rest of the cranks, communists, pacifists, vegetarians, up on their soapboxes spouting the way and the life to 2 men and a 3-legged dog.
Can't you see what hope there would be if everybody in the world knew that there was nothing else but what we have here? What we can reach out and touch. What we can see with our own eyes. No hidden mysteries. No miracles. No God. No future compensation, no rewards, no punishments. See that. Believe that. Truly believe. And only then can we begin to make this world into heaven.
After all those years of war, 2 wars, isn't it stretching the imagination to think of this world as heaven?
I think now more than ever that's what we have to do. Find the answer in ourselves. Think rationally, clearly. If you're interested, I could show you my library.
My brother has the best rationalist library in South London.
I don't need to be converted. I believe in nothing as it is, except the now and then. But I have a friend who might be interested, though perhaps you know her already. Sarah Miles.
My dear.
You must excuse me.
It's a shame. If you could have gained his confidence.
Surely you can get proof.
Ah, yes. The scene where the detective bursts into the room, camera in hand. Only the likes of Edgar Wallace, Mr. Bendrix, Peter Cheney.
Then there's nothing more you can do, is that what you're saying?
I'm saying as long as the lady in question continues to be relatively discreet, no letters to be intercepted, no public assignations, stolen kisses in some suburban park, there is a limit to what more can be achieved without the expenditure of more resources.
More money. Is that what you mean? What for? How would that help?
Well, during the past few days, I've struck up a relationship with the Miles's maid. I think, for a financial consideration, she might be persuaded to turn a blind eye.
But to what end?
To gain access to the house. What else? Half an hour, undisturbed. You never know what you might lay a hand on.
Theft. Is that what you're suggesting?
Research, Mr. Bendrix. That's the word I'd prefer to use.
I like to think that at that stage I could still have pulled back. Told Savage no, that was enough. But the truth is, I could no more have pulled back then than willed my lungs not to take another breath.
I thought you'd not mind meeting here.
No, of course not. Is that...
A diary, yes. Once inside the house, it was easy. She kept it in the usual place, amongst the lingerie and the flimsy silk, all her most intimate things. Here. You'll find my bill in there as well. All expenses itemised. I hope to your satisfaction.
As soon as I was back in my room, I tore the envelope open. The diary was not the leather-bound, padded object I might have expected, but an ordinary account book, quite large. Sarah's familiar bold handwriting crossed by faint red and blue lines. She had not written in it every day, and glancing quickly, I could see that it covered several years. The most recent entry was dated the 12th of February, the day after that strained and, to me, rather flat lunch at Rule's. My eyes seized on stray words on the page. Peace, God, love, pain. She had gone, Savage had reported, into a church and sat alone. Unable to concentrate, I flicked back through the book. 8th of May 1945, VE Day in St. James's Park. The royal family on the balcony. September the 12th, 1944, bought a new lamp for Henry's study. Henry to be recommended for a CBE. I knew now what I was looking for. Back a little further, not too far there. The 17th of June. The day after the V1 fell outside the house. And everything for us ended in dust and broken glass.
Yesterday, I went home with him, and we did the usual things. I haven't the nerve to put them down, but I'd like to. Because now, when I'm writing, it's already tomorrow. And I'm afraid of getting to the end of yesterday. As long as I go on writing, yesterday is today. And we are still together. As we were when just before the bomb fell. Oh, don't go, please don't. Morris! Oh, God! Morris! Morris! Oh, God. Morris? No. No. Dear God, I can't believe. Make me believe. Make me. I know I'm a bitch and a fake and I hate myself for it, but please make me believe. I will believe. Let him be alive and I will believe. Let him have his happiness. Oh, I love him. Let him live. Please. Please. Dear God. I promise. I'll give him up forever. Only let him be alive.
Sarah, you all right? Are you hurt?
Oh, Morris.
Yeah.
Oh, Morris, you're alive. You can't be. Oh, God. God.
It's all right. Come on.
God, you gave me what I wanted, what I begged for, bargained for. He came in the door, and he was alive. And I thought, now the agony of being without him starts.
And then I understood. The sudden departure, the silence, the unopened letters. She had made a pact with God. Her God. A God I hadn't even known she believed in. And in saving me, simultaneously, she had sacrificed me. Sacrificed our love. Because her love for me was that strong. No wonder she had been attracted to Richard Smythe and his nonconformist cant.
You've listened to me speaking on the common?
Yes.
I have to put things very simply there. To sting people into thinking for themselves.
I need you to put something simply for me.
If I can.
Tell me why you're so certain there isn't a God.
Oh, then you do believe?
No.
But if you haven't any faith...
I'm not sure. Not now.
Tell me.
Oh, you're right, it isn't easy. But I prayed. A friend of mine, a dear friend. We were in this house when a bomb fell, and he was dead. I knew he was dead, and I prayed.
For a miracle?
Yes. For a miracle. I made a vow to God that if he spared this man's life, then I would give him up.
Your lover?
Yes. My lover. The only one I've ever truly loved. I would give him up, and I would believe in God.
And you really think it was your prayer, your vow, that saved his life?
Yes.
Even though there are thousands of people all over the world praying now, and their prayers are never answered.
There were thousands of people dying in Palestine when Lazarus rose from the dead.
Oh, a story. We don't believe it's any more than that, do we, you and I? It doesn't stand the test of reason.
But millions of people have. They must have thought it reasonable.
Oh, people don't demand that a thing be reasonable if their emotions are touched. Lovers, for instance. Would you say they were acting out of reason?
So you'd explain away love, too?
Oh, yes. Yes, in some, the desire to possess. In others, the desire to surrender, to lose any sense of responsibility. The wish to be admired.
The love of God?
It's all the same. Man made God in his own image, so it's only natural that he should love him. It's his idea of himself, his ideal. Of course he loves him, but he isn't real.
However hard she tried, Sarah could not shake off her faith. And unwittingly, on that foul January night when Henry and I met on the common, I contrived to make things worse.
I came back into the house, and there was Morris with Henry. It was the second time that God had given him back. Is that what they mean by a merciful God? I think not. After 2 years in the desert, you saw fit to set temptation in my path. 1 whole week I resisted. Longer. 8 days. And then I phoned Morris and asked him to meet me for lunch.
Lunch? I suppose you had a reason.
Had I broken that old promise? Lunching with Morris?
Henry?
A year ago I would have thought so. I was so very literal in those days. Because I was afraid. Because I didn't know what it was all about. Because I had so little trust in love.
It's not that old idea.
But now I was happy with Morris.
No.
Just being with him. Every now and then, he tried to hurt me. And he succeeded. But only because he was really hurting himself. Saying goodbye,
I'll walk into the Strand.
I thought he was going to kiss me. The same place in the street where he had kissed me before, kissed me first. And I longed for it. But then a fit of coughing took me and the moment passed.
You should go to a doctor. That needs attending to.
I wanted to be alone, to cry, perhaps, unobserved. But everywhere was so crowded that I went back to Maiden Lane and into the church. Dear God, did I ever love Morris as much before I loved you? When I touched him, was I really touching you? Could I have touched you if I hadn't touched him first? Touched him as I'd never touched Henry, anybody. And he loved me and touched me as he never had any other woman. But was it me he loved, or you? Was he on your side all the time without knowing it? You willed our separation, but he willed it too. Worked at it with his anger and his jealousy and, yes, his love. You give me peace when I ask for pain. But now I'm not at peace anymore. I just want him like I used to in the old days. I want to be walking with him arm in arm, eating sandwiches, drinking in a bar. I want Morris. I want ordinary, corrupt, human love. Not yours. Not now. Oh, dear God. You know I want your pain. But I don't want it now. Let's take it away for a while. And give it me another time.
Macaulay 7753.
This is Mr. Bendrix. I want to speak to Mrs. Miles.
Oh, I'm sorry, sir. Mrs. Miles is unwell. I'm afraid she can't speak to anyone today. Perhaps if I could...
Tell her who it is. She'll talk to me.
Mr. Bendrix, sir. Mrs. Miles is in bed.
I'm coming round.
Yes, sir?
I'm here to see Mrs. Miles.
I'm sorry, sir. She's not here.
No, don't be ridiculous. Just a few minutes ago you told me she was too ill to come to the telephone.
Well, she went out, sir. I told her what you said about calling round, said she was going out. I tried to tell her it wouldn't do her no good, not in all this weather, but she wouldn't listen.
It's all right. I think I know where she might have gone. Mrs. Miles. Sarah. I know she's here.
I'm afraid you're mistaken.
Don't lie.
I assure you, I'm telling the truth. In fact, I haven't seen Mrs. Miles now in some little while.
Oh.
It may be she's found the answers she was seeking elsewhere.
Sarah.
What are you doing here?
Looking for you.
Oh, no, Morris.
Sarah, I love you.
Oh, Morris, please.
I want us to be together now, always.
Morris, don't.
Look at me. Look at me. I know. I know that you love me. I didn't before. Even when you told me, I didn't believe you. I didn't trust you. But now I do.
Oh, Morris. I'm tired. I'm ill. I haven't the strength.
Yes, you have. We have. Sarah, can't you see? I'm tired too and sick. Sick to death of being without you.
Me too.
Oh, Sarah. Listen, this is what we'll do. You go back home now. I'll take you. You'll go back home and rest in bed. Get rid of that cold. I'll ring every day, twice a day, 3 times to see how you are. As soon as you're ready, I'll come over and help you pack. I have a cousin in Dorset with a cottage we can use, just for now. Long enough for me to finish my book. For us both to rest. Think what we're going to do. There'll be lawyers to see, of course. Henry, all of that can wait until we're ready. Come on now. Let me help you.
Leave me. Just a little bit longer.
Oh, it's cold.
Oh, I don't mind the cold. Besides, it's dark. I can believe anything in the dark.
All you have to do is believe in us.
That's what I meant.
Sarah.
No, it's all right. You can leave me. I just want to stay here a little longer on my own. Collect my thoughts. You go on. I'd rather say goodbye here.
You won't stay long?
No.
You promise?
I promise.
All right. You aren't planning to escape me again? Run off?
Morris, I haven't the strength.
It's astonishing the effect of hope. Suddenly I was working again. In the morning I set myself a minimum of 750 words on the novel, and I'd finished 1,000 by 11 o'clock. Then I revised what I'd written and answered letters until 12:30, when I went off to the British Museum reading room and made notes for a prospective life of General Gordon a publisher was interested in. Between all these tasks I phoned Sarah, and sometimes I spoke to her. Once, I think, to Henry, but more often to the maid. Sarah's cold was lingering, and she was keeping to her bed. I could be patient. It was one thing I had learned. I continued with my work, inspired. And one day, quite early, I was still on my first few hundred words. The telephone rang. Hello?
Bendrix, is that you?
Henry? Whatever's the matter?
Something awful's happened. You ought to know. Sarah's dead.
Here, drink this.
I'm sorry. You didn't mind me asking you to come over?
Of course not.
I know you were fond of her, and she of you.
If you feel it will help to talk about it.
You remember that night I met you on the common? 3 weeks ago, or 4, was it? Sarah had been out. Well, you know. That was when she caught cold. She never seemed to be able to shake it off, not properly. And she wouldn't do anything about it. Wouldn't even stay in bed, not until it was too late. But just a few days ago, she got up and went out into this awful cold and rain, God knows where or why. I came home and found her gone. She didn't get in till 9, soaked through to the skin. She must have been walking around for hours in the rain. She was feverish by the time she went to bed. Next morning, she wasn't any better. I begged her to see the doctor, but she refused. She never believed in them, you see. Well, that night, her temperature was worse. Even I could tell. I called the doctor then myself. I insisted. He said the infection was on the chest. If she'd had penicillin earlier, he could have saved her.
I don't suppose you've had time to think about the funeral.
Golders Green, I suppose. The crematorium. I think that's what she'd have wanted, don't you? We were married in a registry office. It was her choice.
Then she wouldn't want her funeral in a church.
All that fuss with prayers and grave diggers.
Let me take it all out of your hands, the arrangements.
Bendrix, you're sure you don't mind?
It's the least I can do.
Oh, you're a good friend, Bendrix. It's more than I deserve.
Nonsense.
There's just one more thing.
Anything.
Don't go back. Stay here tonight in the house. You can sleep in the spare room. I don't think I could bear to be alone.
Of course. I woke early and left Henry sleeping. He had been able to cry and mourn, while I was numb. On the common, the birds were singing, and the sun came slanting through the trees. And I hated it, for the false dawn it was. I came up the broken steps into the hall. Nothing but the stained glass was the same as that night the V1 fell in 1944. Sarah had believed the end of our affair began when she prayed for my deliverance and her prayers were answered. But nobody knows the true beginning or end of anything. She would never have admitted that the end had started long before. Fewer telephone calls for this or that reason. The quarrels I began with her because I had realized the danger of love ending. If the bomb had fallen a year earlier, she would not have retreated back to that room to pray to God. She would have been on her knees here, tearing her nails, trying to release me from where I was trapped. It's only when our love for human beings reaches its end that we have to delude ourselves into a belief in God. I looked round the hall, clear as a cell, hideous with green paint, and I thought she wanted me to have a second chance at life. And here it is. Empty. Antiseptic. A prison. What right had you to condemn me to life? I came into my room, and on the desk, where my landlady had placed it, lay a letter from Sarah.
Dear Morris, I meant to write to you sooner, but I haven't been well. I'm writing instead of telephoning, because I can't stand to hear your voice when I say I'm not going to come away with you. Because I'm not, Morris, dearest Morris, even though I love you. I love you, and I can't see you again. I don't know how I'm going to live in this pain and longing. And I'm praying to God all the time that he won't be hard on me. That he won't keep me alive.
Oh, Sarah. Sarah.
Dear Morris, I want to have my cake and eat it like everybody else. I went to a priest and told him about my promise to God and about you. I said, I'm not really married to Henry anymore. We don't sleep together, and besides, it wasn't really a marriage. You couldn't call a registry office a wedding. I asked him in time, couldn't I marry you? I asked the question with such hope. It was like opening the shutters on a new house and looking for the view. And every window just faced a blank wall. No, 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 he said. And I thought, to hell with the whole lot of them, and slammed the door on him. Priests. They're between us and God. I thought God has more mercy. But then I looked up and saw the crucifix and thought, of course, he's got mercy. Only it's such an odd sort of mercy, it sometimes feels like punishment. Oh, Morris, I feel like death. I don't want to live without you, but what's the good? I believe in God. I can't help myself. The whole bag of tricks. I've caught belief like a disease. I've fallen into belief like I fell in love. I've never loved before as I love you. And I've never believed in anything before as I believe now. Morris, don't be angry. Be sorry for me, but not angry. I've tried and I've tried, and now I'm too ill and tired to take your anger. I pray to God he won't keep me alive like this.
If I were writing a novel, I would end it here. A novel, I used to think, has to end somewhere. But I'm beginning to believe my realism has been at fault all these years. For nothing in life now ever seems to end.
Morris, welcome. This is Father Crompton. Father, this is Morris Bendrix, the author. He was a great friend of my wife's.
Good afternoon.
Father.
Mr. Bendrix has helped me a great deal. The funeral and so on.
I would have been more than ready to have done that myself.
Oh, I thought your church disapproved of cremation.
I would have arranged a Catholic burial.
Had Sarah been Catholic?
She had expressed the intention of becoming one.
Really?
I had no idea.
Oh, yes. Her intention was clear.
Not clear enough, actually, to have made her one before she died.
Morris.
The church recognizes the baptism of desire.
Oh, how convenient.
There's still time, Mr. Miles, to cancel your arrangements. If you would allow me, I could see that things were dealt with swiftly.
I'm not sure, now that things are in place. Would it really make that much difference, Father? Of course, I'm not a Catholic, but I can't see...
She would have been happier.
Would she?
The church offers privileges as well as responsibilities. There are special masses for our dead. Prayers are said regularly. We remember our dead...
we don't. We have absolutely no reason to believe she would have become a Catholic.
Mr. Miles, I would never have dreamed of intruding on you without serious reason.
If it were that serious, don't you think Sarah would have said something to her husband, or myself?
Perhaps, Mr. Bendrix, you hadn't her confidence.
And perhaps, Father, you jump a little too quickly to conclusions.
Well, I must be on my way. Mr. Miles, be assured, I shall remember her every day in my Mass.
It's very good of you, Father. Please don't think ill of me.
I don't think anything wrong with you, Mr. Miles, I assure you.
Of me, then, perhaps, Father?
Oh, don't worry, Mr. Bendrix. Nothing you can do will affect her now.
I suppose the confessional teaches a man to recognize hate. He held out his hand to Henry and turned his back on me. But it was not Sarah I hated. I was late for the funeral. I had gone to town to meet a man called Waterbury, who was going to write about my work for one of those little reviews. I'd tossed up whether to go and see him or not. I knew too well the pompous phrases of his article, the buried significances he would discover, of which I was blissfully unaware, and the faults I was tired of having to face. But I went, I think, simply from loneliness. And besides, I wanted to fortify myself with a drink or two before the funeral. And 2 became 3. He had a young woman with him, a girl who wore the same black corduroy trousers and smoked the same cheap cigarettes. But she had alert, good-natured eyes, and hair the gold of illuminations. And when I said I was catching the tube to Golders Green, she said she'd travel with me. She lived in Belsize Park. On the crowded train, we strap-hung side by side, and feeling her against me, I was reminded of desire. When she turned at Goode Street to make way for a newcomer, I felt her thigh press against me, and for a moment let my hand rest against her leg like a promise. A promise I had no intention of keeping. But before she left the train, I asked for her number and said I would ring and take her out to dinner that evening. Are you there, Sarah? Are you watching me? Were you watching me then? Do you see how I can get on without you? Only my hatred could believe in her survival. My love knew she existed no more than a dead bird. Smile. I would have thought this was against your beliefs.
Hers, too.
What do you mean?
Didn't you know? She was set on becoming a Catholic.
Nonsense.
She wrote to me. She'd made up her mind. She was beginning instruction, isn't that the word they use?
That must have been a shock for you. A disappointment, one in the eye for rational thought.
I was angry, of course. But we can't all believe in the same things.
Funny, I never thought of you as understanding.
It pays for us to be generous.
Ah, I see. Now I see. This generosity, this open-mindedness. When I thought you were her lover, I wasn't so very wrong, was I?
That's...
What, a lie? Fantasy? Your fantasy. You loved her, Smythe, wanted her. What a pity she could never have wanted you. Not with that face of yours.
Morris, are you all right?
Yes, of course, thank you.
Here's someone who wants to meet you. Mrs. Bertram, Sarah's mother.
Mrs. Bertram. Allow me to express my condolences.
Thank you.
If you'll excuse me.
Yes, of course.
You were Sarah's best friend. She often talked about you.
I was one of them.
But I'll bet she never talked about me.
Well, as a matter of fact...
Henry. He never liked me. It made it awkward, so I kept away.
I see.
I wonder... I suppose you couldn't do me a little favour. Only I forgot to change my money into this black bag before I left home. Just £1 or 2. Something so as I can get some dinner in town.
Have dinner with me.
You wouldn't want to be bothered?
Nonsense. I'd like to talk to you.
About Sarah?
I loved her.
So did I. She'd never have liked that service, you know, my Sarah. Never have stood for it. That clergyman. He was a clergyman.
Yes, I know what you mean. Not Sarah's style at all, C.O.V. She was an agnostic, of course, not a great believer in anything.
She was a Catholic.
Nonsense.
Oh, but she was. We both are.
But she would have said...
Oh, no. No. You see, she didn't know it herself.
I don't understand.
Ah. Mr. Bertram, you see, Sarah's father. He never liked it, me being a Catholic. As for Sarah being brought up that way, well, he wouldn't stand for it. Then, this one time, Sarah was really little. We was on holiday in France, Deauville, and I was angry with him. Really angry. He was being mean. So instead of going to the beach, I went to see the priest. And I said to Sarah, this is a secret between you and me, Sarah. She was good at secrets even then. Though, like I say, I don't think she ever really understood. She was only 2.
Understood what?
He baptised her. There and then. Baptised her Catholic. Then we caught the bus back for lunch.
Is that all? I thought you meant Sarah was a real Catholic.
So she was. She just didn't know it.
Then it didn't count.
How do you know? How can you say? It was the Blessed Sacrament. The words. Holy water. I thought she might cry when he touched it to her little face, but she never did. Even though I never said nothing to her, I always hoped somehow it would take, you know, like vaccination.
That night, I lay on my back and watched the shadows of the trees shift on my ceiling. It's just a coincidence. I told the God I didn't believe in. A horrible coincidence. But you can't mark a 2-year-old child for life with a bit of water and a prayer. If I began to believe that, I could believe in the body and the blood. Everything. You may have turned to him in the end, Sarah. Weakened. But for those years before, you were mine. Not his.
Do you know, I read one of your books once. Sarah made me. You described a house after a woman in it had died.
The Ambitious Host.
That was the name. It seemed all right at the time. Very plausible. The husband moving about the rooms, shifting chairs, pouring 2 drinks instead of 1. Anything to stop the house feeling empty.
I forget.
The thing is, you got it all wrong, Bendrix. It's off the mark. The house doesn't feel empty at all. I used to finish work, come home wanting to see her, wanting her to be there. I'd come through the front door and into the hall and call her name, and she wouldn't answer. She'd be out somewhere, perhaps with you. Then the place was empty. Now, I don't know how to put it. Because she's always away, she's never away. She's never anywhere else, that's the thing. Not having lunch at the cinema. There's nowhere else for her to be. Forgive me, Bendrix, I'm nervy and tired. I don't sleep well. I can't sleep. I talk to her.
No.
I know. Don't say it. Don't tell me. And the next best thing is talking about her. And the only person I can do that with is you.
She had other friends. Plenty.
Oh, that was different. They were not like you. Bendrix, give up that poky room of yours. Move in with me.
What? You can't be serious.
You know how big the place is. You could have practically a flat to yourself.
I can't.
But why not? You'd save on rent, have room for all your books, space to write, and you'd be doing me the biggest favour imaginable.
Oh, Henry, I don't know.
Sane. That's what you keep me. I really think it's true. You help preserve my sanity. besides, it's not as though we don't get on together, the two of us, pretty well. We could share the odd whiskey of an evening, I dare say. Keep one another company. And Sarah, just think, Bendrix, how pleased she would have been to know we, neither of us, were lonely.
So I moved to the north side of the common. I had the guest room, and Henry fitted up the lumber room as a study, and there was a bath on the floor above. For himself, he moved into his dressing room, and the room they had shared with the cold twin beds was left for guests who never came. I resumed my routine, wrote in the mornings, worked at the British Museum till it closed, and then went back to wait for Henry. And usually we went out later and drank a little at the Pontefract Arms. And once, walking back from the museum, who should I run into?
Smythe, I haven't seen you since the funeral.
I've been away.
Don't you still speak here?
No. I've given up public speaking.
Not changed your views, I hope.
I don't know what to believe.
Nothing. I thought that was the point.
It was.
What's happened?
Nothing.
Well, something has. Why are you holding that handkerchief to the side of your face? Have you got toothache?
No. I simply get tired of explaining when I meet people I know.
Explaining what?
This.
Your blemishes.
They're gone.
Then you found a cure. That's wonderful. Something new? Some electrical treatment, perhaps?
No. There was no treatment. None at all. It cleared up suddenly. Overnight.
But how?
You know. You and I know. However much we resisted, it was a... marvellous.
That's not what you were going to say. Marvellous. Miracle. That's what you were about to say. You, of all people. Rationalist speaker converted by miraculous cure.
Perhaps it's unwise to mock. Especially if in your heart you know it to be true.
I know that you're a fool. A sham. No better than the rest.
I tried to put Smythe and his miracle out of my mind. Settled as best I could back into my new routine. Then one morning I came down to breakfast, and unusually Henry wasn't there. I was just pouring my first cup of tea when I heard the front door open and close.
Where have you been, Henry? Not out all night.
No, of course not. Just down the road. The truth is, Father Crompton's had Mass today for Sarah.
Is he still at it?
Once a month. I thought it would be polite to look in.
You aren't turning into a believer too, are you, Henry?
Of course I'm not. But Dave has much right to their views as anyone. As a matter of fact, I've invited him round to dinner.
Then I shall go out.
I wish you wouldn't. After all, in his way, he was a friend of Sarah's too.
Was he? I wonder.
Some more cheese, Father?
No, thank you.
Some brandy with your coffee?
Oh, thank you, no. I can't sleep on it, and I have to be up at 6.
Whatever for?
Prayer. I shall pray for Mrs. Miles, naturally. She was a good woman.
Oh, God.
Mr. Bendrix?
You sit there so smug and knowing, so utterly complacent.
Bendrix.
You think you understand everything there was to know about someone. In truth, you've known for what, hours, days?
Bendrix, please.
She was a good woman. She was nothing of the kind. She deceived you just as she deceived Henry here, and just as she deceived me.
You're wrong. She never pretended to be what she wasn't.
A tart, Father. A liar and a tart.
Sorry.
Any man could have her, even you.
Stop it. You've no right to say that. It's all right. Let the poor man rave.
Oh, and don't give me your professional pity. Go on back to your own people, back to your incense and your icons, your weeping virgins, your bloody little box of penance and your beads.
You'll find me there any time you want me.
Me? Me want you? I'm no Sarah, Father. No Sarah.
I'm sorry, Father. You've no need to be. I know a man when he's in pain.
No, you're wrong, Father. This isn't anything as subtle as pain. This is hate. I'm in hate.
I hate Sarah for what she was, and Henry because she stuck to him instead of running off with me. And I hate you and your imaginary God because you took her away from all of us.
Yes, you're a good hater.
To hell with the lot of you!
Father, please, you must allow me to apologize on Bendrix's behalf. I don't know what I can say.
Oh, no need. There's no need. Your friend, Mr. Bendrix, protests too much. It's not hate that's driving him, you see, but fear. Fear that he might be wrong, and that he might believe after all.
Oh, Sarah. You sacrificed both of us once to bring me back to life. But what sort of a life is this without you? It's all very well for you to love God. You're dead, you can have him, but I'm sick with life, rotten with health. When I loved you, I had to touch you with my hands, taste you with my tongue. Loving you, I had no appetite for food, no lust for other women. But if I began to love your God, even acknowledge him, there'd be nothing left. No pleasure, no life. I'd even lose my work. Cease to be me. Oh, Sarah, Sarah, I'm afraid. Afraid of that more than perhaps anything. Neither Henry nor I spoke of that night again. We got on with our lives. I had brought Sarah's journal back into the house it came from, and from time to time, often late and scared of sleep, I would take it out to read.
When I ask you for pain, you give me peace. Give it to him, too. Give him my peace. He needs it more.
You failed there, Sarah. One of your prayers that has not been answered. Not yet. And as for you, God, you've taken her, but you haven't got me yet. I know you're cunning. It's you who takes us up to a high place and offers us the whole universe. You're a devil, God, inviting us to leap. Well, not me. Not into your arms. Merciful or not. Oh, God, you've done enough. Robbed me of enough. I'm too tired and old to learn to love. Leave me alone forever.
Bendrix, are you ready?
I look forward to these evening walks of ours.
Absolutely.
A brisk turn round the common, then a glass of beer before heading back.
Yes.
Just about the only things I do look forward to now.
I know.
In The End of the Affair by Graham Greene, Maurice Bendrix was played by Alex Jennings and Sarah by Emma Fielding. Henry was John Rowe, Savage Christopher Fulford, and Smythe Christopher Wright. Father Crompton was Gerard McDermott, Mrs. Bertram Carolyn Jones, and the maid Rachel Atkins. The End of the